Hey YouTubers, it's Ronan here with my bar channel where I'm either building it, assembling it, repairing it, or just replacing it. If you all remember, I had my Zero turnover was just blowing smoke all over the place. Well, I was gonna rent a tractor from my neighbor until I get that fixed, and my neighbor said, "Oh, this tractor isn't working," and he gave up. He's tired of it. So he said, "If I can fix it, take it." So I'm like, "Okay, cool." I went up, picked it up from him, and I looked it over. It seems in pretty good condition. When I cranked it up, it turned over. Sounds like it's got good compression. However, it doesn't start. Here I am. Let's see what happens. So he said the carburetor needs to be cleaned out, and once it's cleaned out, it should be good, but he doesn't have time for carburetor or nothing like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this apart and check the carburetor and see what tune-up I can do. This thing has about 628 hours on it. So I pulled out new carburetor assembly and try to look at it, examine it, see what I can fix, clean, or whatever it is. I see a missing bolt on this whole assembly. This got the intake manifold attached, and I decided, you know what, I'm not gonna screw with this. I'm just gonna order a new carburetor because it was cheap, like 20 bucks. Here is the new carburetor I ordered. It came with a bunch of gaskets, a packet of gaskets. This tube that does not connect anywhere, cannot fit anywhere in this carburetor. I don't know why they put the tube in. They just want to complete the kit. A bunch of miscellaneous parts, 2 spark plugs. I checked them. They're just generic spark plugs, so I'm not sure how good they are. There's like no brand name for the spark plug, generic. But I guess with the kit itself, 2 filter, couple of clamps, spark plug holds the gasket. So I started to separate the carburetor from the whole assembly itself. So I start pulling apart the 4 screws and try to get this this carburetor out. Try to match the new carburetor to the old one to make sure it's the exact fit. Here I am just looking at the gasket and trying to figure out how to get those 4 long screws out. Then I figured out, oh, it's a little star point ratchet that I had to use to unscrew those, and once I started unscrewing them, I'm able to separate the carburetor itself from the intake manifold. Once I got it separated, I take the other carburetor and the gasket, make sure the gasket matches the old gasket and they fit accordingly, where it would attach. Look at the alignment, that way I don't screw anything up. I'm not showing you how to reattach the carburetor, how to change the carburetor in this video. I'll show you that in a different video. This is just changing out the carburetor and trying to get this lawn tractor running. So everything is in fast forward right now. So here I'm gonna make sure that my connecting links are connected back into the proper hole. Exercising the I guess it's the rod to make sure that it opens and closes the carburetor properly, and making sure everything aligns. Once that's done, I get my gasket in. Once I put my gasket in, I'm gonna get that 4 screw and screw it back in to the hole. Just so you know, guys, you're watching this video, and 99% of the viewers that watches my video are not subscribers. So do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, like the video, share it, put a comment. Um, it really helps out the channel, and it motivates me to prepare and promote more videos that I have. Here I am putting in the final piece of this carburetor assembly, um, or intake manifold with carburetor assembly, or whatever you want to call it. Once that was done, I went back to the area where I pulled this assembly out of, and made sure I cleaned it up. I get my linkage aligned to the correct holes. What I would suggest for anyone to do is to take a photo of the area you're working on, because if you're gone from the area for 2 days or even for a couple hours, you may not remember how the linkage is connected. So you have to spend a lot of time trying to figure this out. It happened to me when I was working on my zero turn. I had to disassemble it a few times just to get the linkage correct in the correct hole. So I would recommend you take that photo. Um, Once I'm done getting my linkage connected, um, I made sure I connect my fuel line. What I've done before I took this apart, I replaced the fuel filter to make sure it wasn't the problem, um, and checked the fuel pump to make sure that wasn't the problem. So I eliminated those two possibilities for this engine having a hard start, and went ahead and just bought a carburetor. I figured I'll rebuild the other carburetor um, when I have some time. Anyway, I started putting in back the screws and connecting. It was 4 screws, so connecting back the 4 screws back to the engine that hold this assembly in place. Right there, you can see the solenoid for the carburetor that has to get plugged in. Don't forget to plug that in. Once I get my 4 screws in, I'm gonna put my covers back in and do a test run. During this assembly process, you'll see that I have a spark plug that's in a line. It's not the actual spark plug for this tractor. It's a spark plug I just use it to plug the whole of the fuel line, because the fuel continues to drip out due to gravity. What I would recommend anyone doing when you're disassembling your throttle cable and your choke cable, put a marking of where the clamp would go. Once you have that marking in place, it's easy to do the alignment back, to connect it back to the right spot, so that way everything works okay. Do a test of your throttle and your choke cable, make sure everything is functioning properly, then you can tighten everything down. Once you get everything tight down, connect your fuel line, you can fire it up. So here I go, I got this tractor all fired up. That rod was kind of stiff to engage the blade, and I got it running. Once it's running, I was cutting, and everything ran smooth. And after cutting for about, say, 45 minutes or an hour, the tractor just died. It would not start again. Doesn't matter what I did, it would not start. It would just turn over. So I'm thinking the problem is deeper than just this carburetor. I think there's a safety switch probably somewhere by the blade or the cutting deck, and that switch functions, and when it malfunctions, it thinks that the tractor is the blade is engaged, so it doesn't let you restart the tractor. So I'm yet to troubleshoot that issue, but at least I got this tractor running and the engine running. Now do me that favor and subscribe so you can see how I rebuild the carburetor for this tractor, how I troubleshoot that engine cut off problem. I noticed this engine was backfiring too, so how I troubleshoot that backfire, and you will see another video on how I change out just the change out part of this carburetor from the assembly, not the removal and replacement from the engine. So do me that favor, like, share, and subscribe to this channel, and follow me for future videos. You'll also see the video on how I rebuild the head gasket on my zero turn. That's taken a little while due to time constraints, but the head gasket that was blown on the zero turn, you can watch me rebuild that head gasket. So subscribe, like, and share.